Welcome, one and all. I'm your host, Joshua, and this is the Hero Complex. So, as you know, I started two different series when I restarted the podcast. I started with the Creator series that we started last week, and we had Yancey on, Year of the Collector, and now today starts the Industry series. And today we have the pleasure of talking to the man, the myth, the legend, CEO of Raster Technologies, Dion Wilson. And
All
how
right.
are you today, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Josh?
I am awesome. I am awesome. This has been a long time coming, you and I talking again, because we
Absolutely.
actually met, I think it was the summer of 2020.
Wow, was
Where
it
you,
that was
yeah,
it that long
yeah,
ago?
yeah,
All
it
right.
was.
All right.
And both of us have been on a long journey within our own respective industries. But for
Absolutely.
for those people that are listening or watching and do not know, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Well, as Josh said, my name is Dion Wilson. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of Raster Technologies. We are a software solutions company for the comic book industry, and I'm happy to say that since going on this long journey, and I'm sure it'll be much longer, we are extending ourselves to media entertainment, to various groups in media entertainment. We, we created Hero Ledger, which is a uh, blockchain-enabled marketplace where creators can buy, sell, and license uh, what we call comic assets, basically the production assets that they create and put into comic books. We created Comic Chain, the first comic book based blockchain for this industry. No one has, people have said that you could put things on the blockchain. Well, we created an actual blockchain. And of course, later on, I'll get into why. And we've got another really cool app that we don't talk too much about. We show people the logo for it, and we're working out some details with that. But we're going to be happy to bring that forward. We think it's going to be very valuable, as all these tools will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those that want to know, well, first, you being a fan of comic books yourself, name
Yeah, I'm
your
a fan.
all-time
Mhm.
favorite book.
All-time favorite book?
Yes, all-time favorite book that you will drop everything to read, or you know,
Ooh.
yeah.
Uh, that's tough. I've got memories around a lot of comics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, All-time favorite, man. You
Tough
got me on
questions.
that one.
Tough questions.
Yeah, yes, that's a tough one. I can tell you that in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
late 80s, early 90s, I really enjoyed the X-Men.
Oh,
Not
that
just
was
because you're wearing a t-shirt. I mean, I
hey,
really
that was a good year though. That was
it was
Jim
it
Lee,
was a
Chris
great
Carolina.
run.
Yeah. Oh
It
yeah.
was a great run. There were some great minds and great talents on
Mm-hmm.
that work. And so there's not one that I would drop. There were, you know, I collected a lot of stuff. I mean, eh, you know, over over talk Marvel, but I had a lot of Marvel stuff, but I had DC as well.
Well, and there's a lot of us that do as collectors. We
Yeah.
tend to center. We tend to center because I have a lot of
Yeah.
DC.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Marvel, but I have a lot of DC in my collection.
DC, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
my biggest thing is
Mhm.
what started the process for the comic chain, and the what started the idea for you coming out with this blockchain application, and why did you feel like it was necessary to do within the industry?
Sure. So real quickly, um, having a love for comics, art in general,
Mm-hmm.
that's everything from fine paintings, oil paintings and fine art, sculpture, all the way to comics. What I saw with comic books is that it was behind far behind the curve in terms of the use of technology. Um, you could see software companies provide, paint programs. Madefire, who used to sit across the bay from me, a few cities over in Berkeley, California. They came up with, I would say, the most dynamic product, but it really didn't speak to all of the necessary processes in buy and sell as well as produce. So I didn't really see any companies that really thought about creators specifically
Mhm.
and really help them to advance what they're doing. See a lot of agnostic software, and you can just use it as it works for you. We wanted to be granular. We wanted to create solutions specifically for this group. And when I didn't see that you know said, hey, use this as an opening. The other thing, the second part, which is kind of the first, is being an indie publisher myself for 5 years. I met a lot of indie publishers, and so many that it was overwhelming as
Mhm.
to the number globally that are out there. But many of them have the same problems, and that is, access to capital. You don't see banks lending in this direction. You don't see venture capital, private equity. Um, you know, you you see somewhat of kind of business and consumer pools when you look at Kickstarter,
A lot of
or
crowdfunding. A
right,
lot
a lot of
of crowdfunding.
crowdfunding. You see kind of pools that way, but nothing from you don't hear about Jamie Dimon or JP Morgan chiming in
No.
on the comic book industry.
No.
They may talk about Action Comics, Superman's first appearance, right?
Right.
Because of how valuable it is. But when it comes to little guys, you know, the value proposition, right?
Mhm.
So we said that there's a tremendous amount of value here that really isn't reaching its potential nationally, and globally.
Right.
And we wanted to tap into that. We wanted to show how much value is here socially, financially, and we felt like using a blockchain would help us to show these data points, show these values, and also show that we're not pencil whipping or manipulating the number. These chains are permanent,
Mhm.
and when someone, and rightfully so, they could say, hey, you know, we get it. You want to show there's value here, but how do we know you didn't change these numbers? How do
Right.
we know you didn't make this up to make yourself more important or to make these people more important?
Right.
Well, the comic book industry is very insular. And
Mhm.
so there are a lot of values that are being propagated kind of, in a very circular motion throughout the network.
Right.
And we essentially wanted to show that value and show how much it's worth based on some of the data that we collected
Mhm.
that basically shows, from even a microscopic, just cursory look, there's a tremendous amount of value here, and it's just not reaching the levels that it should, and we kind of noted what those reasons were. And so Comic Chain is there to help us to lock those values in and to share those values with businesses, with the industry itself, with the creators who need access to these things, not in cryptic ways, but in very easy to digest, very easy to use, bites.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And so Hero Ledger was also created because we wanted to create efficiencies in the process of monetization. We know about crowdfunding, as you mentioned. We
Right.
know about um, people self-funding. You know,
Mhm.
like I did. I self-funded my own business. We there are other ways of doing it, but we saw that there was just so much art in the form of scripts, in the form of characters and images and graphic design that's created to showcase, but it never makes the light of day. You know, it never it sells the individual creator, but it doesn't sell.
Right.
Okay. And so that's just too much work you're doing to not have it go forward for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, a lot of people want to work for Disney. They want to work for Marvel, Image, and, you know, they want to start their own business.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're doing that, a lot of times they're going to be cash strapped and not realizing that if they would monetize what they have already created, they're going to be so much better off. And I see this so often.
Mm-hmm.
I see it so often. You have these character creators literally will post a tremendous number of characters on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and they'll say, "Hey, you know, I'm looking for a job too." It's like you have a job. It's creating characters.
Mm-hmm.
Monetize that, and a lot of it comes from, you know, if you spent your college time learning how to illustrate, you didn't spend your college time learning business protocols, you know, learning how to monetize that. So they've got one end of the skill set and then they require another. And software is here to help people that don't have college degrees, help
Right.
people who, you know, may have certain disabilities or limitations, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And we might as well go ahead and use it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like the value of some of this work. Is there a certain, like, say that I'm a creator, do I okay, so I'm a creator, made my account, and I'm working with the Hero Ledger and the Comic Chain. Do I attach my own value to that, or is that assisted with? Is that am I assisted with that also to keep it kind of like an even keel, to where I'm not cornering my own like speculated value and
Yeah, I
keep
understand
it
what you
fair
mean.
for the consumer and the creator?
Right. So to answer that really quickly, the creator is going to price their items, their
Mm-hmm.
assets. But we know, you know, some people don't believe in the dynamic of, you know, corrective markets or
Mm-hmm.
markets being self-corrective. The way that I look at it is you're going to put your work out there at the price you feel is best.
Right.
The buyers and licensors are going to tell you that that price is either too high,
Okay.
you know, the Goldilocks
Right.
idea, right? Okay. Now there's a second component.
Mm-hmm.
We're working with technologies
Mm-hmm.
that will provide predictive and suggestive results, excuse me, to these creators.
Okay.
So that's the other component,
Okay.
you know, yeah.
What as far as starting this process and now at this stage, what has been one of the biggest challenges you and your team have faced?
uh, let me choose one.
Okay. All right.
Um, well, the reality is that I'm being facetious because there are a lot of challenges.
Right. Right.
You know, when you have a nascent technology that people may be used to certain feature types, but they're not used to the construct, it can be difficult even to sell that to developers. Now, some people say, well, what's the point of selling that to a developer? You know, you pay the developer gets the job done. That easy. Developers have to be able to see what it is that you want created
Mm-hmm.
so that they can take their skill sets and develop that. Um, I recall when we started this process of Hero Ledger, it was really easy to stand up Comic Chain. I have to
Right.
admit, I say easy. I didn't do it. My developers did it, but they were good at it and they did it fairly quickly.
Right.
Um, you know, and then we also had help because we utilized a software development kit that allowed us to build an autonomous blockchain environment. So that was super. Okay. Our we you know, we our hats are off to Tendermint, to the team that programs for Ethernet and for Cosmos that helped us out tremendously. So that was easy part. That was easy part. There's more to it. When it comes to creating a unique application, you can't necessarily get a template for that. You have to be able to spell out those details, and someone has to communicate this to the developers. Well, like I said, I'm one of the co-founders of Raster. Samuel Benton, who is our chief technology officer, PhD graduate from University of Dallas at Texas, and our other co-founder, he was responsible for taking these really lofty ideas and putting them into a system where our developers could then build the necessary logic, But one of the most difficult things that we faced is, developer turnover. Developers are in demand, and yet there's still more room for more developers in the entire software development industry and different types of developers. That's the thing too. One of the things we saw as a part of that problem, we saw a lot of exuberant young developers who definitely wanted to take on new projects to get that experience under their belts, but they focused directly on Solidity, which is an Ethereum programming language. 90% go right to Solidity, and they're missing so many other programs and so many other chains that are out there. But Ethereum is really a first starter, and so it makes sense. They're a grandparent in this environment next to the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain itself.
Right.
So that was an issue.
Okay.
That was an issue. Yeah, that was one. We'll just stay with that. I don't like talking about what problems we have.
Oh, I get it. But I'm a
know,
solutions kind of guy. If you always look at the problem, you'll only see the problem.
Sure. I mean, we have to examine it.
Right.
But and it's fair. People have to know.
All right. Yeah. So within the comic chain and Hero Ledger, sure, what would be, well, let's center on the marketplace, the Hero Ledger. Okay. What tool inside the Hero Ledger is indispensable in your opinion? What is one of the best tools that can be utilized within the Hero Ledger? And if it's a couple, if I'm thinking, and correct me, if you there's a couple, hey, inform the people.
There are a couple.
Okay.
But what I'll do is I want to talk about just one.
Okay.
And the reason why I don't want to talk about the second is only because we've yet to implement it, but we are working on it.
Okay.
So smart contracts are very important. They're important to communicating with a blockchain, as well as helping to manage tasks and assets that are being transacted between users, that are being facilitated within the application space. Very important.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to formulate a question in the right way.
No, it's okay. Take your time.
Yeah. Throughout this whole process, because and when you and I talked in 2020,
sure,
you just didn't start. This has been a pretty big undertaking with creation and implementation. What has been the biggest help for you and Dr. Benton? Is that
yeah, we could call him Dr.
Okay.
Okay. I've never
well, I don't want to I want to recognize his accomplishments. So
absolutely. I usually call him Sam, but I think I might start calling him Dr. Benton. He might like that. Yeah. What has and I'm sorry, let me get back to the question. Really took
it's all
with
fun.
The Dr.
We can laugh when needed.
Yeah. So what has and if I understand the question correctly, what has helped us?
Yes. What has been the biggest help for you and he throughout this whole major process?
You know what? That's a very good question. We're a great team,
Right.
he and I, and teamwork has really been important
Hmm.
to uh, getting where we've gotten. He and I have been working together. Even we worked together 2 years before we became an official company. You
Hmm.
see, I sought him out 2 years prior. He had yet to become the doctor, but he was on his way. He had already made a lot of advancements in his scholastic and academic career. So, and also in projects that he had been working on.
Hmm.
So I sought him out, and he saw the vision. He also comes from a family that collects comics too. And I to be quite honest with you, I didn't look for people to have a comic book background or even a love for comics. I looked for people that could get the things done that I saw were necessary for really arranging all of this, for really bringing this forward. So some people have had very little experience with comics except the movies. Others have been, they've got a collection. But the thing that has helped us the most is teamwork, and within teamwork, communication. You know, we make sure to communicate in written form to one another. We're a small company, but we submit reports to one another, written reports. We have a quarterly report that everyone submits. We have an annual report that everyone that submitted to everyone, I should say, with the annual report. Everyone contributes, but it's one report. We communicate written and we communicate verbally. This is extremely important in our process. So Mr. Benton has been a huge help, and we've had others that have been a tremendous support as well.
So the overarching theme of that was like your team has been
Yep,
the biggest help, and
team and
that is,
communication,
I can
huge.
attest to that because it's the Hero Complex is me. My
Yeah.
wife, she's my marketing genius. And
Good.
I do have a couple of friends of mine that helps. But it's pretty much me scheduling, me recording, me
Yeah,
editing,
yeah.
So yeah, I wish I had just a little bit of help, but I'm a little bit particular, so that's my
Oh,
fault.
sure, sure. I am
Um,
too. Yeah.
so the biggest thing is the
Mm.
let's start on where people can find all of your stuff. And for that, I will share my screen
Okay.
and I'm hoping all that is being seen.
Okay. Yeah, it's coming up
So
now. Mhm.
this,
This is one great place to start. We're redoing our website. We had a landing page up at raster.io. We've taken that down. So there's like a generic image there. We're going to redo the website, put a
okay,
lot more information there than we had in the past. So that's being worked on. But this is the second best place to come for information.
okay,
I post a lot of things as well, but on the LinkedIn um, Raster company page, you're going to get documentation. You're going to see very, business oriented posts.
right.
So, besides happy 2023,
But I just wanted people to see
yeah,
just what
like
kind of
that one as an
information.
example,
And
where,
just
where
so
we,
everybody knows, we're going to go through a lot of the information that Dion and Raster are offering. And then I will have all these links in the description in the video and into the description of the audio podcast. So you can go there, sign up, and then find out your own information just without having to rely on this big goofball that's talking to you now. And then we have the YouTubes.
yeah, yeah.
And I did look through a few of these videos, but you're also like you've been on several podcasts, Comic Crusaders, You mentioned one before we started the show that you were on recently.
So I've been on Comic Crusaders,
Right.
ICCS had a podcast. We did that. If you go to our playlist, you'll see a fair amount of
Okay.
them.
Okay.
The Color of Motion with Don Terrell. I've been on um, David Jesse's podcast called Tatooine Sons. Uh, one of my last was, as you see there, the questionnaire.
Okay.
Uh, the host was his title is he's the unknown, and also yeah, just I mean there's been a lot. We ended 2022
Mhm.
uh, at a live doing a live event. We were guest panelists for the FTT embedded um, um, fintech fintech North America event, and I'm probably butchering the name. It's long, but I'll release the footage of that as soon
Okay.
as I can. It's a
Okay.
lot of footage. We were panelists for about 30 minutes, where we were able to talk about the creator economy,
Okay.
how fintech impacts our industry. So I would say that we've probably been on exclusively over
Okay.
30 shows.
And I know it's probably weird for one podcast to kind of give another podcast some advertising space, but
Yeah, and I appreciate you. Wow.
I
Mhm.
would love for people to get all the information that they can,
Thank you.
especially if they're creators and creative people that want to venture into this, or if you've been in the industry for years. Go to these avenues, go to these information sources, and get what you need before you jump into this. Because, and I'm not speaking for Dion, but I would rather you guys get the information, then use it, and go into it as an informed person and not just throwing yourself in the fire.
I agree. I agree.
Now, the last one will be the official sign in page. This will be where you subscribe to actually utilize and be part of the multiverse and utilize the Hero Ledger and be a part of the comic chain. Um, I have actually, I'll have to redo this. I won't do it during the show, but uh, I've actually looked into it, and I will have to say, Dion, I am impressed. I'm
Thank you.
not widely well versed in any blockchain programs or anything like that, but it's just user friendly because I've been using computers and software for years. My first computer was a Commodore 64, if that
Oh,
age me. Um,
nice.
so with me utilizing it, it was easy to use. It was easy to find what I needed to find. It was easy to get places. And the analytics that you give, if memory serves, it's impressive. And
Nice.
do respect to you and your team.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's you asked, some of the problems, it's painstaking. I'm new to software in this respect. I mean, I've
Right.
been using software for a long time, but it's a totally different experience creating it versus
Using
using
it.
it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
I
and you
guarantee it.
yeah, you have to kind of switch your mind, but also keep the mindset that, hey, somebody's going to use this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we wanted to do, we wanted to make sure that it was intuitive. That's the word that's typically thrown around, but it's the truth. We wanted people to have the experience that if they logged into and used, Amazon, or they used Facebook or anything else, it's they're universal features, and we wanted that. We wanted to arm creators with data in a better way. We really wanted to show them, hey, these are the people reaching out to you. Here's where they are in the world. Here's what their spend is. Here's what, the kind of things they want to spend their money on when they come to you. We wanted to show them that. And some people may say, well, I see that at Shopify, or I see that with, another e commerce website. We're not done. this is a beta version where all of the features and enhancement we couldn't load it down with those things, and over time there are going to be more features, and then there are going to be more applications, so you will go from one application to another, so you're going to get a lot of rich inputs with your product, and that's very important. I hear the talk, so yeah. I can't hear, you're actually muted.
I was typing. I didn't want to be rude.
Oh
I
no,
want
you're good.
people to understand what he just said, and you don't have to repeat it, Dion. But he
Okay.
said, and if you go to it and you sign up, what you will see, the big operative words he just said is, "We're not done." So if I'm impressed now, which I will wholeheartedly guarantee that people will go there, and if you haven't used it, you will be impressed with what you see of how fluid it is to utilize the Hero Ledger. They're not done. We will see far more things and far more apps to utilize and tools to utilize for this. So and I'm gonna fanboy for a little bit. I was excited when I first met you. I was excited when I heard about Hero
Nice.
Ledger
Thank
and
you.
and the comic chain, and because it is, I've seen artists.
Okay.
Corzin Stone, followed
Okay.
him on LinkedIn, followed him on TikTok. I've seen this gentleman grow from what he was to now he's doing work for Marvel on their games. They are
Nice.
doing, he's doing a comic series on TikTok that's utilizing
Nice.
several different mediums with TikTok, a video game, a comic book, a webtoon. It is
Super.
crazy. And
Nice.
actually, it's going to be released today.
Okay.
More free ad space
Congrats.
for people. Um,
Congrats.
so
Mhm.
for people to grow in a space that there is no growth except for going to a big publisher
Right.
is
Right.
huge. And now I'm not a
Right.
creator, but I understand the ramifications and the importance of
Mhm.
things like the Hero Ledger and the comic chain and the tech that you're actually developing.
Thank you. I would say you are a creator. You
Yeah.
see, when you look at the larger industries out there, larger businesses, specifically in finance, they're looking at all of us. They're looking at the software developers, they're
Mhm.
looking at the product creators, and you're a product creator, yours is media. And as a media creator, you're in the same vein as, YouTube, what we call YouTube influencers, but people who have YouTube channels. And I don't mean that in any negative way. I mean it very positively.
Mhm.
You're providing a platform that talks about this industry, that gives more insight. So you are a creator, and the financial industry is still counting you as well. So, I wouldn't count myself out by saying I'm not a creator. You are. You create in this space. You provide a platform for people like myself and others, even the gentleman you spoke about, to, for other people to hear and know, and to be able to look for themselves, as you said earlier. And that's
Mhm.
that's extremely important. Transparency is very important,
Okay.
and we
Well, I
need more
appreciate
of
that.
that. But yeah, you are a creator.
One thing that we did not touch on because I really wanted to focus on the Hero Ledger is
Okay.
Titanium Comics.
Ah,
I'm a comic reader. I enjoy independent publishers.
nice.
It is
Mhm.
majority, I will say now, majority of my collection that I keep. Um,
Okay.
Companies like Boom Studio, Sovereign Comics, IDW, Scout, TKO. I love the independence. Would you mind showcasing a little bit about Titanium and where we can, where
Sure.
comic
So
nerds can find your wares?
the first, we don't sell the comics anymore. So what
Okay.
I'll do, is, you have a Gmail account. I
Mhm.
will, I believe they're already there. I'll send you an invite to our drive
Okay.
where we keep them, and you'll have the digital versions. You have a digital version.
Okay.
Okay. Second, we do maintain our Facebook page.
Okay.
So you can go right over to Facebook and I was shocked at the fact that we're still growing even on Facebook, and you can see it for yourself. I don't, you can tell the audience, you can, or keep it to yourself, but we've got a nice following there, and we haven't produced comics, like I said, and we only did it for 5 years. But in that 5 years, we really tried to. It should be. I think it's ti.comics, Facebook/ti.comics.
Oh, I'm on it.
Yeah.
I got it.
So we wanted to stage some of the information about Hero Ledger as
Mhm.
we started transitioning from that business. So that's some of the last stuff you'll see there, but we maintain it. Um, we're very grateful for customers who have been worldwide, for the creators who have been worldwide, the artists, the writers, inkers, letterers that we worked with over the years to create what we feel were amazing comics. But I think they pale in comparison to what we see on the market today. We got
Well,
started earlier. You know, yeah.
let's be honest, and I'm
Mhm.
very critical about the main industry.
Okay.
DC has not produced, and this is my opinion. I will say
Okay.
this. This is my opinion.
Mhm.
DC has not produced the level that I think they could with the people that they have. Uh,
Oh, and with others that they can bring in. I mean,
yes,
that much is certain. I
they
agree 100%.
stay they stay in their little box, and they
Bubble.
tend
Yeah.
not to go out of it, which they should, because there's a whole bunch of people that are
Yeah.
the independent books are just
Right.
they are killing
They're
them.
killing it.
They're killing them.
They're killing it. I mean, that's the honest truth. They're killing
Yeah, I think the one artist, and and this will be the last person that I get for
it.
um
I don't know.
Daniel Warren Johnson, who
Okay.
did Wonder Woman Dead Earth for DC,
Okay.
is great. And then he went over to, I think it's Image, and did Do a Power Bomb, which is a professional wrestling themed comic book, which I have only seen when I was a kid. And
Okay.
it was WWF who did it, and this
Nice.
centers on like Japanese professional wrestling. So it was actually good to see that he was venturing
Nice.
into a fandom that does not get some spotlight on it.
Yeah.
But it's really well done. It's really well done, and then that's the
Yeah.
caliber that the independent books are coming with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now DC is mixing it up. They
Sure.
disbanded the Justice League and have the Teen Titans coming into the forefront of being the
Yeah. The
team.
mainstay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Titans.
So we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. Me being a fanboy who is hopeful, and I guess I'm still holding the torch for DC. I'm crossing my.
But I think you should, in terms of its potential. I think that until, and I do predictions, and I'm going to put it out. Been good so far, but I think that they have a lot of background business that they need to handle before you're going to see really excellent comics like they can deliver.
Mhm.
Uh, you
Yeah, if
know,
they would stop
it'll be a
focusing
while.
on the film stuff and trying to be Marvel.
Well, you got different divisions. I wouldn't I
Yeah.
wouldn't include the two together, but I would say the part that runs them both, the business side of things, it remains to be seen when it comes to being sold to Discovery,
Hmm.
what kind of leadership that they are either going to recruit, or that they already have, or even that they're going to um, kind of incubate within the body that they purchased, that's going to lead that comic business. We hear all the stuff about Zaslav,
Yeah.
like we did JPEG, Chapek rather, and
Hmm.
and we did Feige, right?
Right.
But that's the movie unit, which
Right.
is totally separate from what's happening in those comic books. And really, when you look at the majors, Marvel, DC, they're not getting the sales today.
Mm-mm.
They're not getting the sales the money is being made at the, in the movies. And you
Right.
look at it, right? I mean, one comic, $4 or $5, one movie ticket, 50,
Hmm.
so how many comic books is that, right?
Well,
And you know,
and that was one of the I was having a conversation with one of my friends who's a fellow
mhm,
creator or a fellow collector,
okay.
and he is just adamant. He hates DC movies. He thinks, stick to the animated movies and the comic books. And I was like, well,
Mhm,
it's a focus thing. If
yeah.
just what you said, if
Mhm,
we're making more per every movie ticket,
right.
why aren't we focusing on that rather than every book that's $4 or $5?
Well, that's a good question. I'm gonna shoot from the hip and say that you can do both, but it's really about what the business strategy is.
Right, right.
If you're appealing, we have companies today. Let me not say today. We've had always had companies this way.
Hmm.
They will appeal to shareholders,
Right,
may not be as interested in the product as they are from the ROI, as they are with the ROI of the
right.
of the product. Okay. And it's kind of a get or done mentality as opposed to the specifics. Sometimes, these people are not interested in the specifics, and that will kill a a product. It will kill a product channel quickly.
Hmm.
And I think what has to happen is, we talk about the active investor, or activist investor.
Hmm.
These investors, for instance, of what Disney is potentially seeing here pretty soon, an activist investor wanting to make some radical changes.
Hmm.
Investors in general need to become more active in not just seeking return or even alpha, but also, what is this product? What does it do? What are the values here? And we have some investors that are that way, but a lot of them are lazy. A lot of them are ignorant about product.
Right.
This industry really needs private equity.
Hmm.
It needs private equity and venture capital. Um, not when I throw those terms out, people say, oh, it's just money. It's not just money. These people bring a level of business expertise
Hmm.
that and the ability to set track metrics that's important. Okay, that's important to products. Now they're not all, as we use it, they're not all superheroes. They're not all great people to work with. They're not all great
Right.
people to have investment dollars from. But as a practice, that industry is about the metrics, and it's about leveraging the help that is needed. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing, in my opinion, we're seeing a lot of selfish behavior. We're seeing a lot of behavior where the customer is no longer valuable.
Right.
The employee is not valuable. What how do you have a business where these people aren't valuable? But part of that problem is when you get into intangibles and intellectual property.
Hmm.
When intellectual property becomes more valuable than the people you sell the product of that to, why focus on them? And so, because of accounting wizardry, what we have in intellectual property is more important. So where do we put the focus? We put the focus on an intangible as opposed to on the people.
Well, and there's a double side that there's another side of that where people are getting discouraged or getting uninterested or disinterested with,
Yeah,
one of the big two or both the big two.
both,
It
not just one, both.
it opens the door for
Mhm.
smaller independent creators,
Oh
and
yeah,
it opens
absolutely,
the door for
absolutely.
different stories, not better, just different. um
True,
because
true.
not everybody likes superhero comic books, not everybody likes big muscles and spandex. um
Right,
a lot of
right.
people like stories that are real or have
Yeah.
um have a little bit of an aspect of realism to them. Like this could
Sure,
actually
sure.
happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Case in point, the stories. Now, this isn't a comic book; it's a video game. But the show
Mhm.
Last of Us that just debuted on HBO Max.
Okay. Right.
Um, that whole thing, people called it a zombie show, but it's actually based in something that could potentially happen in a random
Right. I mean,
zone.
if we take away the mutation parts,
Right,
which
right.
mutations happen in
So if you
genetics. Yeah.
there is a plausible situation that could happen, like if a whole bunch of variables weren't there. But my
Sure.
point is,
Right.
um,
Right.
people are starting to steer to those kind of stories and not the big, big muscly guys that are
Right.
fighting villains that monologue for a half an hour.
Right.
And I find myself and I guess I'm deflecting or projecting, because that's
Mhm.
that's what I've done is I've gone from Marvel and
Mhm.
DC, and I've started collecting more of the independent titles that aren't superhero stories as a whole. But a lot of my friends, when we have discussions, it's more independence and um, independent publishers and private publishers that we're discussing, and not Marvel and DC. We discuss
You're correct.
frustrations, but
Right.
that's why I had yourself come on and
Right.
kind of tell everybody about the Hero Ledger, because we want to see more independence. We want
Absolutely.
other people to have their chance to do it.
Yes. Yes. You're 100% right. And I don't think you're projecting. The statistics were 65%, and this was I think as late as 2010 and going all the way back, 65% of the comics that were sold were, superheroes, so the heroes in tights.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, that number has started to go down. And I would say actually as early as 2006 and 7, that number as a percentage started to change also as more females started to come
Definitely.
into not just pop culture, well, pop culture as a whole, but
Right.
into comics, comic
Mm-hmm.
collecting, and all other kind of things that they do. Cosplay, reviews, illustrate, write, the whole nine. So that's been changing, and I'm not saying it's changing because of the number of females, but the time does intersect with the number of women that have come into comics and young ladies as well. But young men also want to see something different. It reminds me a lot of how sales dwindled, and there was almost like you become a bit more numb with the superheroes until Frank Miller, until he, you know, took Batman and Daredevil, and the Punisher in directions that, I mean, they're already kind of dark characters, but he kind of brought
Right.
more realism. Marv Wolfman did the same thing too, right? These guys, you know, really, I think, spoke more to a generation who had outgrown the fancifulness
Oh yeah.
of comics and were dealing with real life issues. And so they would write from that place, and it became something that you could relate to, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
like what you're saying. And so I would have to say lately the visual that's been the equivalent to that is The Walking Dead,
Mm-hmm.
the actual show, where they make it accessible on a conscious level, right? So when we talk about the suspension of disbelief, uh, there's not a lot of that. You're able to say, like you were saying about The Last of Us, this is possible. Star Wars is a bit further off. We want that world, right? But The Walking Dead, and The Last of Us take away the zombies and leave humanity in a desolate condition, you're going to get those things,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
even worse,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So yeah, so people could relate to that. And then
Mm-hmm.
if there's a change in economics, a change in politics, and the sentiment for those things are on the downside, people are going to gravitate to that type of entertainment even more so.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that really opened the door in this cycle, this and the cycle which it started, this, viewing cycle, entertainment cycle, where we want to access content that we can relate to, right? They deal with the superhero, but they deal with the superhero from the mental side of things.
Right.
What DC would do, but just not pulling any punches, not really appealing even to ratings, to ratings advocates and talking heads who would say, oh, this is too much. So yeah, and just to speak when you mentioned, Hero Ledger, we wanted to create a platform that would make access easier. We wanted to create a platform where creators, where a bit of the stress of being a creator would come off of their shoulders. That was the idea there.
And my last question, everybody has an idea, loose as it may be,
Okay.
what an NFT is and what it does. Now,
Yeah.
everybody's seen the fluctuation.
Okay.
How has the rise and seemingly the seeming fall of NFTs, how has that helped or hurt the Hero Ledger process, or has it helped it?
So let me. I think I've said this probably on maybe the last 3 talk, where I had talk points. Everybody that knows me will laugh at this. They'll laugh at me because they know I'm not a fan of NFTs, but specifically, I'm not a fan of the way that art is being exploited through non-fungible tokens as a programming language.
Right.
The non-fungible token is a phenomenal program logic that can allow us to do many things, but the way that they're being used in art and exploiting artists, even the top creators, even DC has had legal issues with this stuff, but the way that it's being exploited and the way that it's misunderstood, it's laughable.
Right.
It's a circus. It will never hurt our business. I will not allow that to happen. The shysters that put out NFTs, and a lot of it is a joke, they can't come close to what we do or what we are going to deliver.
Okay.
I should say, and what we're going to deliver.
Right.
Now that's a big boast. That's big boxing draws, but I'm gonna put out here that a lot of people, when Mike Tyson got in the ring, they thought, oh, he's just gonna dance around a bit.
Right.
And they got hit twice, and then it was over.
Right.
Okay, we play like that. You see, you have to take time and think. And this, I'm not speaking about anybody in specific,
right,
but I will state generally, thieves need to move quickly. They don't have time to think. They want to take it, imitate it quickly.
Right.
The people that are doing the work are thinking. They're thinking when you're sleeping. They're thinking when you're going out on dates. They're thinking when you're walking down the aisle, signing the divorce papers, buying a new car, the new house, whatever it is, they're thinking, and they're putting together things. There are a lot of limits in this space. We came across a company, no names mentioned, and their big boast many years ago, I have no idea where they are now, but their big boast was they were going to put comic books on the blockchain. And these kind of ideas are steeped in idiocy, is steeped in not actually spending time educating yourself about what this technology is. And let's be honest, it's difficult for 90+%, maybe 99% of the general public to understand what is a blockchain, What's a
Right.
smart contract? Why do I care about cryptocurrencies? What's this got to do with, the price of tea in China? No
Hmm.
offense. Okay. And most people will use the catchphrases, but they can't go and break these things down.
Right.
So the NFT, talk about a non-fungible token. We're
Hmm.
talking about what, and I'll just break it down to the least common denominator,
Okay.
a one-off. It's a one-off. They are traceable, okay, but they're meant to be created. I mean, they're meant to be treated as a collection, at least the way they're being used in the art community.
Hmm.
Okay, we're talking about that specifically. They're being used to provide a so-called value exchange of limited art, which could be valuable in the future,
Hmm.
in exchange for money to the creators of that, like we would go buy a painting, but
Right.
this is a digital representation. Okay. Um, I challenge comic book creators to look at that carefully and say, how will this add value to your customer and to the product that you have to create each and every day? I challenge them. And they're going to find that there's very little, if any, value there.
Right.
Okay. Because at the end of the day, they still got to churn and burn out those comics.
Right.
And that NFT is going to sit there because now what you need to do is spend more money on advertising and marketing and a
Hmm.
team just to promote this, because who's going to promote it?
Right.
Nobody knows you.
Right.
You see, and why we decided to get into this space, we have three pillars.
Hmm.
Okay, really four. The premise is the fourth pillar, but three: brand recognition. More people need to be able to say Alterna, Scout Comics. Um, what are some other ones out there? I mean, even Image, which has multiple titles. They need to be able to know those. They need to be seeing those on T-shirts, on diapers, and
Right.
stickers and all these other things. So there's brand recognition, but there's also effective collaboration between the peers that produce these comics as well as the consumer who digests them. Okay. We need to do this in a better way. It needs to be a more focused way. It needs to be where there's greater information between all parties. And then there's also, brand recognition, effective collaboration, and our favorite, monetization. We need to make money on what we're doing. When we set out, gathering data, we learned that the majority of these creators make between $20,000 to $30,000 a year.
Hmm.
Some have second jobs, and comics is kind of a hobby business for them because they're unable to get it to the point where they're not going to see 10,000 or 100,000 in sales. And I don't mean
Right.
dollars, I'm talking about units.
Right.
Okay. Why? They don't have the distribution. Distributors won't work with them because even in that kind of distribution, you have to have upfront, you got to have upfront product ready
Right.
to go. You want to get on Target shelves. If you want to get in, if you want to get your comic, unless they come down and say, look, we specifically want to work with independent, see market share for that. There's no growth in it for them.
Right.
You see, it's different when you peddle, and no offense when I say peddle, but it's different when you peddle a Marvel comic or a DC comic. You put that on news rack. They know that brand translates over into other aisles.
Hmm.
Okay, they can get a sale from probably every aisle in there, including food, by the way, which I mean, it's kind of crazy that, our vegetables come in bags, but they do. Okay. Sometimes it's easier. I saw a bag of apples with the Avengers on. Okay. Now, if I was a kid, if you just you wouldn't even have to have that. If you put an Avengers, the logo sticker on the apple, I'd be all over it.
Mom, I
All
want
over
that. Mom, I want that. And it has
Right.
nothing to do with the Avengers. There's
Absolutely.
nothing but apples in there.
Right. And so from the vegetable section in Walmart all the way over to the entertainment areas. Just having that comic on the shelf, people are going to be able to shop throughout that whole store. Can we
Mhm.
say this about the independents? No.
No. And
You see?
sometimes you have some of those creators just work on that book or for that company. A lot of the
Sure.
bigger ones work for, like, if they work for DC, sometimes or sometime in their career, they've
Right.
worked for Image, they've worked for
Oh yeah.
Dark Horse, they've worked for Marvel, so
Right.
they've built a name to work at several of these, and sometimes they're working for several of them at the same time,
Yeah,
i.e.,
absolutely.
Donny Cates, who's writing a book
Absolutely.
for Image, Marvel, and he's done one or for DC,
For
or
DC. Right. Right. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's and I wholeheartedly agree. I've had friends that got into the NFT thing, but then as soon as somebody said, "Oh, I got this digital piece of art, it's a one of one," my first question was it going to take somebody to copy that? Oh, it's a one
I
of one
mean,
on a computer, has a watermark. You can copy a watermark.
you can not only copy a watermark, but you can put something over the watermark. You can
You
hide the
can,
watermark. You
there's
can
people
enlarge
that
the
are
image.
technically savvy to the point that they can recreate
Yeah.
anything they want to because they're
Yeah.
figuring
Yeah.
it out every day. And that's
Yeah.
why I just never, I'm not going to spend $200 on something that I'm going to put on my wallpaper on my computer.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
the, I would rather have a one of one comic book cover that I went to a convention and paid $200 for that I
Yeah.
know can't be recopied.
Yeah.
So,
You know, when I bought my 1942 copy of Submariner,
oh,
I had the comic. Not had, I have. I shouldn't say had, I still have the comic.
oh, I
Right?
would love to just touch it. Just,
I would too, but it's encased. I can't. If
oof.
I break the case, I'm in trouble.
Oh
But
yeah,
you know, that comic is, as of last year, that comic was 80 years old. Okay. And nowhere close to being the oldest comic,
no,
but it's a highly sought after.
now it
Um,
is.
yeah, um, like you said, that's tangible.
Yeah.
I could sit there for hours. I didn't have no business doing it, but I can, and just wow out and
Oh
and
yeah.
just enjoy it. But and then I also want to point out something too. There is exchange value in this. So there's a secondary market. I purchased my comic, was already used. I mean, because the 1940s aren't here. That didn't come off a 1940s print press today. It came off
Right.
a 1940s print press in 1940. But there's a way for me to sell that.
Right.
Whereas if I get a space monkey or a lizard cowboy or whatever they do as far as NFT,
Mhm.
what's the secondary value? Why would somebody why would somebody want to buy this from me? There's no value in it.
Some of them attached secondary value, which was if you bought one and it
Okay.
was the ape or whatever,
Yeah,
they
the
they
ape.
attached like a trip to an island or a trip on a yacht or something like that to a
Oh.
small group of people. So that was the secondary value, but that was a one-time secondary value. After
Well,
that
what was the
trip,
cost for them to do that?
uh,
And
some of them, I know Eminem, the it was celebrities. It was all celebrities because there was
exactly,
20,000
exactly.
plus that they were
Right.
spending on these tokens or these NFTs.
Yeah,
Uh,
you can do that. We wanted our creators to make money in multiple places with
right,
files, right?
right.
We said, look, you've got to use this file to license, to print,
Hmm.
to turn into whatever it needs to be, a toy even. Okay. So we didn't want to limit that file as a one-off. We
Right.
wanted that file accessible to everyone that needed to license, buy it, and use it based on the owner's permission. You know, Tracing it is a part of a security process that we're implementing. And that's important, but we need to understand why that's important. When we talk about traceability, we talk about the ability to track something online. We're really talking about helping us to facilitate a map of how things are being used, who's using it, the who, what, where, when, why, and how, and to build our case that only a court can make a judgment on, to say you own this or you do not. And that's why
Right.
we don't say, we help with the protection process. We help attest to ownership. We cannot prove ownership. Courts are there to prove ownership.
Correct.
Okay. And it's one of the biggest, it's just like the idea of putting comics on the blockchain. Well, I dare you to have a secure block, and you've got a comic book that's probably 350 megabytes of space. Okay. Silly. Now, as we move forward, we know that there are programmers in the space that you can get more space in a block, more size in a block, and it's potentially secure, but that needs to be tested. And the litmus test is the Bitcoin blockchain, which is the safest and securest so far.
Right.
And I think it's moved a few notches from 15 kilobytes of data. They're very small. They're very small, very small. And that helps with securing that block.
Right.
So you look at one image from the comic book world is easily 100 megabytes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So 15 kilobytes of data in a block, right? And I'm sure there's more now. You can go look it up.
Right.
I'm pretty sure there's more, but we're talking about the most secure. And why the security? Why does it even matter? Because you don't want someone changing the data. You want the data frozen in time, representing the value that you've established or that the community has established for that asset. You want it to remain.
Because as far as addresses to those blocks, if you get one thing wrong, it basically breaks the whole chain, right?
Well, what you may be speaking about is when we talk about a wallet to wallet transfer. Right. So if I'm going to say send you cryptocurrency, then the public key, which is your wallet address that you give me, I do need to get that wallet address right. But there's another element too before that. I can't take a Bitcoin wallet and send you Bitcoin to your Ethereum wallet. Can't do that.
Right.
Okay. So wallets also have to be compatible even before the transfer of that unique digital asset or cryptocurrency. But you're right. It has been warned for many years that if you get it wrong, you could lose out. Somebody, if you send in $15,000 in a particular, somebody's going to wake up and see their account and go, whoa.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that I wanted to touch on, because I don't know if it translates to your comic chain the same exact way, but that would be a bad day for somebody that's getting a piece of product, and if they've already paid for it, if that person delivering that piece of product gets one thing wrong and just gives it to somebody else, would there be a way to, because you said tracking, where that went, so is there a way to retroactively change that, to go to that user and say, hey, you mistakenly received this is supposed to go to this, and maybe that's too detailed of a talk, but
well, I'll make it simple.
Okay.
There are a number of solutions that can be implemented. Okay. But I'm not going to, really, I don't consider myself the ultimate tech guy. So when something is lost in the blockchain, they really mean it. But there are people who like to do forensics that can find things. I even know about people who, they come from uh, you know, quasi-government background, and they know how to unencrypt things. But if the conditions are correct, they know how to do it. But there is a way through programming to confiscate.
Okay.
I won't get into the details of that, but there is a way to confiscate. Uh, when we talk about traceability, we can use a block explorer to track where something went. But because these cryptographic hashes, they're long alphanumeric sequences,
Hmm.
and I mean, you can enter out that alphanumeric sequence that you entered into an explorer, and it should have some range to look within the blockchain that it's directly local to, as
Okay.
well as others. Okay,
Okay.
there are ways to look for things. There are ways to look for things. Whether or not you find it, now that part I can't be specific to. And then there's a third element. Dapper Labs, and they're not the only ones. In fact, Ethereum is doing the same. They're making this process of sending much easier.
Mhm.
Where this alphanumeric sequence, if you're not properly tracking the first four digits and the last four, you're in trouble.
Right.
Or copied it correctly.
Hmm.
They're now setting up what is similar to domain names, which is very similar to buying a domain name for
Hmm.
your website. They're setting up where you will be able to send your crypto payments with words and number sequences that are very easy to remember. It could,
Okay.
Dion.Wilson. So
Right.
you type that in, and then that's the wallet that it's going to send to. That's the wallet address it's going to send to. So they're now coming up with processes where you don't have to keep track of these crazy alphanumeric sequences.
Okay.
You're going to have things that are easy to the human mind to remember. So for
All
most
right.
of us anyway. So yeah, there are some solutions out there. Yeah.
Well, I think you have answered all my questions. I have enjoyed
Okay.
this time. Um,
Absolutely.
to close out, you got any words for any future creators that you
Oh,
want to impart?
well, yes. I like future creators. Uh, future creators are the future of this industry.
Mhm.
And what I would say is um, our Gen Z and millennials are, sorry guys, you come out of the womb with a mobile device kind of stapled to you. You know how to use it. And that's going to be a tremendous advantage on myself as a Gen Xer, baby boomers, silent generation when I think about them in this process, but still, okay, you have the ability to not enter into the comic book industry, the game development industry, the cosplay industry, fashion design, architectural design, mechanical engineering, way that your parents or your grandparents did. You have the ability, and you're going to have even more tools available, but you have the ability to use tools that help to monetize you, that you need to, uh, I say need to, I'm sorry. I invite you to try to learn and use. Uh, a lot of these companies out here are not invested in your success. They dangle a carrot of monetization and data in front of you so that you will participate in their system. But you need software creators on your team, as well as that are intuitively, as well as um, emotionally there for you. We create from these spaces. We create from the space of intuition. We create from the space of experience and knowledge. And we create from the space of empathy. And these are important. Okay. So we want you to understand that Hero Ledger and Comic Chain, although we say comics and heroes, most of the groups that I name, all of the groups that I named, even some others, do visual storytelling. A mechanical engineer is a visual storyteller. Okay. It is a more technical visual story, but it is a story nonetheless. And the parts to tell that story, the production assets to tell that story, are the same as with a comic book or fashion design or cosplay. It's the same. And so we invite you to look at our system. We invite you to look at the information that we provide and look at other information. As Josh said, look at other information out there and make key decisions. Don't get caught up in going into any industry and just doing it that way because we did it that way. Find the way that works best for you. Find the way that you can communicate best with your customers and your teams. Provide more value. Find and provide more value. That's what I would say.
That is awesome. Awesome advice. Mr. Wilson, I do appreciate your time. I know as a CEO and a software person,
Yeah.
you are a busy man. So
yes.
and I would love to get you and your partner, the co-founder, Dr. Sam Benton, in here at the same time to kind of get both perspectives. And I would like to meet him as a co-founder of something that I'm very, very excited about. So
I'll network you.
I will get a hold of you, hopefully get some progress reports, and
yes, we'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
And
thank you for this opportunity. I'm sorry.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, you are quite welcome. I am honored.
Yes.
And for the Hero Complex, again, I'm your boy Joshua, Quantum Traveler on Instagram, TikTok, and we also have the Hero Complex on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. Yeah, you can find us everywhere. And Dion, they can find you on LinkedIn.
That's correct.
You can also find the Raster Technologies, or you can find Raster Technologies on YouTube and LinkedIn. And if you are interested to see their past wares or their past Facebook for Titanium Comics, that is also available at TI. You can find it just by searching Titanium Comics.
Yes, you can.
Again, Dion, I do appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Do this again.
Thank you.